But our top story tonight, the Kolkata High Court has pulled up the Trinamool Congress government in West Bengal. Kolkata High Court has said that Shahjahan Sheikh, a prime accused in the sandeshkhali land grab and sexual harassment cases, must be arrested. Sheikh, who is a TMC leader, panchayat leader in the sandeshkhali area, is the one who is wanted and has been absconding for more than 50 days. High Court has clarified that there is no stay on the arrest of Shahjahan Sheikh. The Trinamool Congress has now said it will arrest Sheikh Shahjahan within the next 7 days. Remember, this has now become a trigger point for that battle between the TMC and the BJP and left ahead of the Bengal elections. In fact, it's nearly 2 months since Sheikh Shahjahan has been absconding. Kolkata High Court coming down heavily on the Bengal government, saying that it needed to do much more to arrest him. Protests have also continued in villages neighbouring Sandeshkhali. Team India today is on the ground, brings you the latest story.
Bengal's Sandeshkhali continues to simmer. Fresh protests erupted in Bermajur on Monday. Locals ransacked house of yet another TMC leader. Residents accused TMC netas of looting Prime Minister Awas Yojana funds meant for them.
আমি তো সেটা শুনলাম, সেটা না আমাদের অভিযোগ, মানে আমাদের 2020 সালে ঘর এসেছিল আবাস যোজনা, সেই ঘরের মানে কিস্তি ঢোকানোর জন্য হলদারিয়া তাপদারি 30,000 টাকা নিয়েছিল। তাহলে কিস্তি ঢোকাবে, নাহলে ঢোকাবে না। আমার ক্ষেত্রে সবার ক্ষেত্রে, হ্যাঁ সবার ক্ষেত্রে 30,000 টাকা করে নিয়েছিল। ঘর নালে টাকা দেবে না।
আপনি সেই ঘরের টাকা পেয়েছেন?
হ্যাঁ পেয়েছি, টাকা দেওয়ার পরে পেয়েছি, নালে পাইনি।
Fresh violence erupts in Sandeshkhali. Let me show you another TMC leader. Shankar Shardar residence has been ransacked by, protesters and particularly women over here just a while from now. And now you have, many women with streaks and brooms. They have gathered and attacked Shankar Shardar's place.
The Calcutta High Court, meanwhile, shattered Mamata government's excuse to give a nearly 2-month-long free run to absconding TMC neta Shahjahan Sheikh. High Court demolished a bid to shift the blame to judiciary by CM Mamata's nephew and TMC General Secretary Abhishek Banerjee. Abhishek had claimed that the runaway TMC neta is not being arrested as per High Court directive.
শাহজাহানকে গ্রেপ্তার করার জন্য রাজ্য প্রশাসনের হাত পা যদি হাইকোর্ট বেঁধে না দিয়ে পুলিশকে এম্পাওয়ার করত, পুলিশ করে দেখাতো।
The High Court said it has never barred arrest of Shahjahan Sheikh. It also slammed Mamata government for turning a blind eye to land grabs by TMC men for 4 long years.
अभिषेक बैनर्जी ने जो है अपने बिल में से बाहर निकल के लोगों को झूठ कहा था। इतने दिन तो वो शक्ल नहीं दिखा पा रहे थे, क्योंकि पश्चिम बंगाल की औरतों ने जिस तरह के एलिगेशंस लगाए तो वो लोग कहीं मुंह दिखाने लायक नहीं है। और कल आकर के वो कहते हैं कि कोर्ट ने उसको प्रोटेक्शन दिया, इसीलिए उनकी पुलिस जो है वो पकड़ नहीं पा रही है। तो पुलिस की नाकामयाबी इसमें साफ है। और आज कोर्ट ने पूरे तरीके से कह दिया कि इस तरह का कोई भी स्टे ऑर्डर नहीं है, वो दोषी है, उसको पकड़ना पुलिस की ड्यूटी है। और अगली बार फिर अगली तारीख में हम ये पूछेंगे कि पुलिस अभी तक क्यों नहीं पकड़ पाई।
A cornered TMC, which has so far defended Shahjahan, promised to arrest him, but defended Abhishek's words.
There was a stay put by High Court on the investigation related to Sheikh Shahjahan. That's why so far the Sheikh Shahjahan issue is concerned, police was unable to take action freely. Now, once the stay order has been removed and police personnel are freed, based on the chronology of the capabilities and events and the activities of police administration, you can very well say that now police will be taking their own course and the accused will be definitely brought to book in due course of time.
With the scathing High Court indictment, is it time for Sandeshkhali's villain? With Ritik Mondal in Bermajur, Bureau Report, India Today.
So did it require a harsh court order for the Trinamool Congress government and the West Bengal government to wake up to arresting Shahjahan Sheikh. Sushmita Dev, TMC spokesperson and member of parliament-elect, is joining me of the Rajya Sabha. Appreciate your joining us, Sushmita Dev. Did it require the Kolkata High Court to tell you that there is no stay on the arrest of Shahjahan Sheikh? There was only a stay on the formation of an SIT. Now suddenly the West Bengal police and government say we will arrest Sheikh in 7 days. So either you know where Sheikh is or someone was protecting him.
Rajdeep, first of all, it's a very simple English which you see in para 8 where it says, it goes without saying that the West Bengal State Police shall be restrained from proceeding with investigating the case. A arrest is a culmination of investigation. Investigation involves looking for the people, tracking him down, taking evidence or whatever. So where the High Court has clearly said that you are restrained from investigating, and they did not accept the single bench's order about the SIT, which is jointly represented by, the CBI and the West Bengal State Police. What other interpretation could the Bengal police have taken out?
No, Sushmita Dev, Sushmita Dev, let's be clear. The SIT was formed or was to be formed to look at the attack on the Enforcement Directorate when they had gone to apprehend Shahjahan Sheikh in early January. That was SIT. Since then, there were other allegations that have come up of land grabbing, of sexual harassment, and on those allegations, there was nothing to stop the West Bengal police from suo motu investigating and indeed arresting Shahjahan Sheikh. Now when you tell us we'll arrest him in 7 days, the implication seems to be that you know where he is.
Please, Rajdeep, if we knew where he is, we would have bolstered our narrative and said we'll arrest him in 24 hours. We didn't have to say 7 days. Now these are all conjectures. Let's move away from conjectures. The fact is that there were 3 suo motu FIRs filed after the ED was attacked in Sandeshkhali. And the primary accused in those FIRs was Shahjahan Sheikh. When High Court gave this order, you cannot deny. You can say what you want to. You and the media have the right to question us. But no one can deny the fact that this order, a plain reading of it would tell you that the court said we don't trust the West Bengal police and please back off. To put it bluntly,
Sushmita Dev, nothing is to stop a police. The police could have arrested him and told the court, look, we've gone and arrested him in another case. My point is, how does the West Bengal government escape scrutiny on the question of, was the government protecting Shahjahan Sheikh, that you know of his whereabouts? And now, so many days later, more than 50 days later, you seem to be ready to go ahead and arrest him.
Okay, now let me give you a counter argument. If we were so reluctant to arrest the perpetrators of crime, why has the West Bengal police arrested 20 people? All the people who are named, who are associates of Sheikh Jahan, who has arrested them? It is not the ED, it is not the CBI, it is the Bengal police who's arrested them. Bengal government has gone to the extent of opening police camps to say, please come and register FIRs and we'll arrest 20 arrests. So if we've arrested everyone accused, what is the logic for us not to arrest? If we had arrested Shahjahan Sheikh, all this controversy would have come to an end. So why will we do something that is counterproductive to our government?
Because Shahjahan Sheikh is seen as a strong local Trinamool strongman who can deliver you votes. You've got an election coming up, and therefore there is a sense that he is patronized, he is protected. He could not have run his empire in Sandeshkhali the way he did without some element of patronage and protection.
Rajdeep, if you're talking about patronage and protection, tell me how many times has the Bharatiya Janata Party dismissed their MPs accused of molesting wrestlers, or the Vyapam scam or the Chiki scam? Mamata Banerjee is the single chief minister who has sacked Partho Chatterjee and Priya Malik.
You see, after they are caught with their fingers in the till, this is all. Once the person has been caught, then action is taken. Now, many would say, why not preemptive action? Could the chief minister, who's also the home minister, or indeed the West Bengal government, have not known that in Sandeshkhali this is happening, that all of this, they were oblivious to what was happening there?
Okay, Rajdeep, let's assume that your argument is correct. Then my counter question is, did the BJP, who is now creating havoc in Sandeshkhali to politicize it, they are the primary opposition who abused Mamata Banerjee from morning to evening. Why didn't they do anything about it for 5 years? Why only 1 month before the elections? Where was the opposition then? They have workers in Sandeshkhali. Why were they quiet all these years? That means they've also planned it in a way.
But the buck stops, ma'am, with due regard, the buck stops for law and order with the chief minister or with the government. Just as you can blame the BJP when it is in a BJP ruled state, now when the foot is on, when the shoe is on your foot, you will have to take the responsibility. That's the nature of this country. You can't escape responsibility and accountability. There are women who've suffered.
Rajdeep, make no mistake. We are fully aware of the fact, and we recognize the fact that law and order is a subject matter of the state, and if anyone can take care of these grievances of the women, men, children, whatever happened in Sandeshkhali, it is the West Bengal government. Rest is all a political ploy because BJP knows they cannot win Bengal. So I am happy answering hundreds of your questions. I'm happy to be judged by your viewers, but I will not be questioned with a double-faced Bharatiya Janata Party which says Hindu women were done this and Hindu women this happened. If it happened to women, she's a woman, irrespective of her religion. Mamata Banerjee will take action. You be rest assured. But we owe the Bharatiya Janata Party absolutely no answers. They're a double-faced communal party who are headed to losing West Bengal, and this is all they can think of as their way to fight Mamata Banerjee.
Let me leave it there. You are committing, though, or your police is committing to have him arrested within 7.
Absolutely.
Okay, we will wait and see. We will wait and see whether within 7 days, that's coming up next week, whether those arrests take place by the 4th of March. I will keep what you've said on this show. I have recorded it, and I will play it back to you on the 4th of March. Sushmita Dev, appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much. Okay, let's turn from there to another state, this time a BJP-ruled state, where there is another serious law and order question being raised. The Haryana chief of the Indian National Lok Dal, Nafe Singh Rathi, was allegedly shot dead yesterday by unidentified men in Bahadurgarh. Another INLD party worker died in that attack. The shooters, who were in a Hyundai i10, fired multiple rounds at Rathi's car. Multiple security personnel have also sustained critical injuries. While some detentions have been made, questions are being raised with the Khattar government here in Haryana. Take a look.
A murder of a top political leader has left Haryana in shock. Nafe Singh Rathi, the state president of the Indian National Lok Dal, and a party worker were killed in Bahadurgarh, just 30 kilometers from Delhi on Sunday. The assailants, who came in a car, sprayed 20 bullets on the moving SUV the leader was travelling in. 3 private gunmen hired for Rathi's security suffered injuries in the attack. A CCTV footage has emerged which shows the alleged assailants' movements in a Hyundai i10 just before they fired at Rathi. The footage shows the 4 suspects travelling in the car some distance away from the attack site. The police are scanning CCTV footage from nearby areas to trace the number of the assailants' car. An FIR has been registered against 4 suspects: former MLA Naresh Kaushik, Ramesh Rathi, Satish Rathi and Rahul.
एक गोली 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 और इस तरह से कई इस कार में गोलियों के निशान आपको दिखाई देंगे। और कार का जो निचला हिस्सा अगर आप देखें तो यहाँ बकायदा जो कांच है वो बिखरा पड़ा हुआ है। पूरा जो शीशा है वो टूट चुका है। इतने राउंड यहाँ पर फायरिंग की गई है इस कार पर कि पूरा जो कांच का शीशा है चारों तरफ का वो टूट चुका है।
देखिए, पुलिस प्रशासन का यही है कि हमारी टीमें लगी हुई है और जिसका भी इसमें संदिग्ध रोल आता है या डायरेक्ट इन्वॉल्वमेंट पाया जाता है उसके विरुद्ध जो भी कानूनी कार्रवाई बनती है वो की जाएगी।
The attack, which comes weeks before the Lok Sabha elections, drew sharp reactions from the opposition parties.
आज पूरे हरियाणा में हर नागरिक अपने आप को असुरक्षित महसूस कर रहा है। ऐसी परिस्थिति हो गई। ये तो खाली एक आज पूर्व विधायक थे, हम सब इतने गंभीर हैं, लेकिन आम आदमी के साथ भी ऐसा होता है, तब भी हमारे गंभीर होना चाहिए। हम जब क्यों नहीं गंभीर होते? कितने मर्डर हो चुके, कितने डाके पड़ चुके, कितनी धमकियां मिल चुकी।
The slain leader's family has refused to perform the last rites until all the accused named in the FIR are arrested.
बार-बार शिकायतें देने के बावजूद खट्टर साहब से मेरे ख्याल दर्जनों बार मेरे पिताजी खुद मिले और हर बार मेरे को आगे बताते थे कि भाई मेरी बात हो गई है, सिक्योरिटी दे देंगे, लेकिन उन्होंने नहीं दी। उन्होंने मेरे पिताजी को मरने के लिए छोड़ दिया।
Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar assured the family the guilty won't be spared.
मैंने STF हेड से बात की। मैंने कहा मैं ये केस आपको दे रहा हूं, आपने और कितने बड़े-बड़े केस सुलझाए हैं, इस केस को भी आप सुलझाने के लिए अपनी पूरी ताकत, पूरी फोर्स आप लगाएं और पूरी इनको जल्दी से जल्दी पकड़ा जाए।
There was a massive debate in Haryana Assembly with the opposition demanding CBI probe. Though the government has responded positively, accepting the probe by CBI, there seems to be a massive pressure coming on Haryana police. One, for not providing security when asked for, and the second is looking for clues as far as the killers are concerned. There is already an uproar that this is a political murder. Kamaljeet Sandhu in Chandigarh for India Today.
From those two troubling stories, let's turn to our talking point tonight. The government of India has finally released the Consumption Expenditure Survey after a gap of 10 years. It shows how much are all of us across rural and urban households spending on various consumption items. The study shows steady increase in both rural and urban average monthly household expenditure. Niti Aayog CEO BVR Subramaniam has gone to the extent of claiming that poverty in India might be now down to just 5%. How does one interpret those numbers? I'll be joined by two top economists in a moment. First, take a look at this report.
The long-awaited consumption survey findings are finally out. The study by the National Sample Survey Office under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has some interesting takes. The rural monthly per capita expenditure, which was 579 rupees in 2004 and 5 and 1,430 rupees in 2011 and 12, has now gone up to 3,773 rupees. The figures for urban India is now at 6,459 rupees, up from 2,630 rupees in 2011 and 12. For both rural and urban households, the spending on non-food items is higher than food items. The survey shows even within the food bills for rural households, the money spent on cereals has come down from 20.3% in 2011-12 to 10.6% in 2022-23. On the other hand, the expense on eggs, fish and meat as part of food expenditure has increased from 9.1% to 10.6%. This has been increasing steadily. The figures have increased for milk as well. Economists see this as a good sign as it indicates rural households are spending on nutritious food. Citing the consumption survey, Niti Aayog, BVR Subramaniam says that poverty in India is now down to 5%, but inequality remains a concern. The bottom 5% in rural India spend 1,373 rupees per month as against the top 5% who spend 10,501 rupees. Similarly, the bottom 5% in urban India spend 2,001 rupees, while the top 5 spend 20,824 rupees. The Narendra Modi government has faced much criticism after it scrapped the 5-year consumption survey. But with the latest survey, it will seek to silence critics who have questioned the government's claim on fighting poverty. Bureau Report, India Today.
let's raise the big questions again. Has extreme poverty really declined in India? Are the rural-urban inequalities declining as is being claimed? Is the consumption data we are being provided reliable? What's the big takeaway? And to make sense of this national household consumption data that has been provided after a gap of a decade, joined by two very special guests, eminent economists. I'm joined by Dr. Surjit Bhalla, former Executive Director for India at the International Monetary Fund. And also joining us is the former Chief Statistician of India, Dr. Pranab Sen. So appreciate both of you joining us on this critical question of looking at consumption, poverty, inequality. Dr. Sen, let me turn to you. The survey suggests, or the data suggests, that per capita monthly household expenditure has more than doubled in 2022-23 as compared to 2011-12. This has led the Niti Aayog CEO to suggest that poverty in India is now below 5%. Do you go along with this poverty figure, that poverty in India is below 5% now?
The two separate questions there, Raj. The first is whether am I surprised that the monthly per capita expenditure has gone up by 100%? And the answer is no, because what it suggests is inflation adjusted. That's only about 3 to 3.5% increase in consumption expenditure per year. Now, for an economy that's growing at least 6.5%, that is not a surprising figure at all, right? That's number one. The second is the question on poverty. The fact of the matter is that this particular data set is significantly different in the way the data has been generated from the surveys that we used to do earlier. And it is not yet apparent to me that the old poverty line can be used to calculate poverty from this data. We may have to revisit the poverty line in its entirety. But that's a call that I will, and most of us who are in this particular line of work, we will not be able to take this call until the unit level records are made available.
So effectively, you are skeptical about this 5% figure, that only 5% of Indians are now below the poverty line. Based on this consumption expenditure survey, you believe that would not be accurate, that it would be inaccurate to suggest that only 5% of Indians are below the poverty line. Am I correct?
No, I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying that categorically. I'm saying that given that there's been a significant change in methodology, applying the old poverty line to this data would not be appropriate until we've done a little more detailed work.
But would you be willing to accept that many more Indians have been lifted out of poverty in the last decade, indeed, dare I say, over the last 2 decades, than the previous 2 decades?
Almost certainly, yes, right? Now, I don't think that is the issue. The real question is the extent to which it has happened. And that depends upon the consistency between the consumption data and the poverty line, right? And on that, I cannot be categoric.
Okay, so your question, you are raising more questions over the nature of the poverty line and whether we need to revisit that entire issue of how do we decide on the poverty line. Am I correct?
This is correct.
Okay, let me take that then to you, Dr. Bhalla. Dr. Bhalla, you among others have been pushing the idea that millions of people have been lifted above poverty. You heard what was just said by Dr. Sen. He is suggesting that we need to be a little cautious, if I may use the word, before we suggest that only 5% of Indians are now below the poverty line if we go by this consumption expenditure survey.
Yeah, let me add a few observations to what Dr. Sen has already said. First, that actually, and what you are saying, given the poverty line that we have, the Tendulkar poverty line or the World Bank 1.9 poverty line, the poverty figures in India today, according to the HCES 22-23, is about 2%, not 5% or higher. 2%. Second, where I happen to agree with Dr. Sen is that we need to revisit the poverty line and raise it substantially upwards. I don't know whether he meant that we should, the methodology of calculating poverty has not changed from the 2011-12 survey. There's nothing at all that is different from this than earlier surveys, because we now have the same definition of poverty, which is the modified mixed recall method. Second, that the reason you want to raise the poverty line, and this is something that I've argued at least for the last decade and a half, is that when your incomes rise, when your per capita consumption rises, as it has done in India, and especially in the last 10 years, you need to raise a poverty line, because around the world, poverty lines become relative. It's no longer absolute. The absolute poverty line, the extreme poverty line of 1.9 or the Tendulkar poverty line is obsolete, because it's no longer suitable to the Indian conditions. By conditions, I mean the progress all Indians have made, especially those below the poverty line and the bottom 50% as well, that we need to raise the poverty line.
But when you look at what the numbers I'm putting out at the moment, which is interesting again from the survey, the rural-urban disparity. This survey seems to suggest, purely looking at monthly consumption expenditure, the gap between rural and urban India has reduced. Do you go along with that, Dr. Bhalla? Do you believe that, because there is a huge question mark again over rural income and agrarian distress that has been raised in the last decade, in particular at various times. Do you therefore go along with this rural-urban disparity reducing?
Look, the disparity has been there forever, and you're not going to eliminate it. What is very revealing about this survey is, just like there's a disparity between the top 20% and the bottom 20%. So what you want to look at, so there, by definition, there's disparity, whether you look at rural, urban, upper class, lower class, or whatever. I think that's a meaningless debate, or meaningless discussion even, forget the debate. What is relevant is what has happened to inequality. Now, according to this data, inequality in India always, and Pranab Sen knows this, whoever has studied the data, basically inequality has risen in India. This throughout since 1983, since then we have a continuous series of inequality. For the first time ever in India, you have a decline in rural inequality, and even sharper decline in urban inequality. This is a very rare event in the world. Inequalities do not decline, they go up. What you have is that inequality for the first time in India, and by a large amount, urban inequality has declined from a Gini of 37 to a Gini of 31, and rural inequality has declined from 28 to 27. We can ignore the numbers, but the trend is unmistakable, and I would like to add, is historical, both for India and for almost any fast-growing or slow-growing economy in the world.
Dr. Sen, your response to that. Has inequality actually declined, or is that really where the numbers will come into question?
This is really where the question is. You see, the point is, what Surjit is saying is right, which is, if you look at the data that we have at the moment, that would be roughly correct. I haven't worked out the Gini out now, but I'm sure Surjit has. That would be correct. But then the question is, what do you read into it? And that really is the issue. That is it really the case that the inequality has declined, or is it the case that less and less people from the upper tiers of the income distribution have not responded? That is the question. And because if you look at the numbers, they also are a little worrying. One of the reasons we had changed the methodology was this growing discrepancy that was happening between the national accounts estimates of consumption and the NSS estimates. That difference hasn't gone away.
So are you raising questions over the data itself, that the data which seems to suggest that within rural households and within urban households, disparities seem to have reduced or inequalities seem to have reduced is questionable, that you will have to look at the data more carefully before one can pronounce with any certainty that actually inequalities have reduced, because other organizations have only suggested that a smaller and smaller group are cornering a greater and greater percentage of incomes in this country.
This is the public view, as it were. It's a fairly widely held view. No, the point I'm trying to make is that this particular methodology of collecting data is a very intrusive methodology. Earlier, the field investigators from NSS used to go to a household only once and collect whatever data had to be collected. Now they're going thrice, right? Which means that quite often the investigators are either being turned away after the second time or even the third time, or they get somebody else responding to it, not the same person. And so it introduces problems in the consistency of the data, which has to be looked at a lot more carefully before we can take the data at face value.
There is enough other data which has come up, as I said, in the last couple of years, post-COVID, which has suggested incomes have either stagnated, in some cases declined, employment opportunities have been few in certain sectors of the economy, there's been migration. Should all of this be discounted when we look at these household consumption expenditure figures? Should we discount all the other data around us that suggests all is not well?
Look, honestly, Rajdeep, I'm not understanding. Of course, we had the COVID shock and the GDP declined by something like 6%. So, absolutely. What you have to look at is the data now. This survey was done in 22-23, August of 22 to July of 23. Was there any unusual event? What is the data for this time period for the consumption that has been published, which is that variance? You mentioned that the employment data, well, the employment data of the PLFS shows that labor force participation rate of women is now up to about 39% if you take the usual status. So, and even according to the current weekly status is 33. Unemployment is at almost historic lows in India. So basically around 3 to 4%. So I don't know what data you're referring to, which says that conflicts with the evidence provided by the household consumption expenditure survey that was just released.
Yeah, we've had.
None. I do not know any.
I'm going by
and
Center for
happy to discuss.
No, I'm going by Center for Monitoring Indian Economy that tracks labor force participation. As I said, there have been huge variations in data on employment in particular in the last few years. This suggests
Look. The CMI data we've discussed on your program, I've discussed on other programs, and you won't find too many scholars agreeing with their data. They show female labor force participation rate in India to be 9% right now, which is lower than ever observed for any country in the world, including Yemen, including Iraq. So, I don't see, just because you point out the CMI showing it, it's not credible. You show me one economist who's written an article that those data are credible. One.
Okay.
You won't find any.
So effectively, therefore, Dr. Sen, if I were to ask you your top 3 takeaways, your biggest concern and your biggest ray of hope from this consumption expenditure survey.
Well, let's begin with the ray of hope. I think what the survey is suggesting is that things are coming back to normal. That is the the big takeaway. My concern is really with the data itself. Is until and unless we can establish the robustness of this particular data set, we cannot say with certainty that we are out of the woods.
Is that your concern? Therefore, if I may quickly add on to that, Dr. Sen, that in 2017, the data in a sense was junked by the same government because they did not seem to agree with the data that was being put out.
The government didn't like the data.
Yeah, so I mean, this time they like the data, so it's out there. Can I make that assumption?
Well, if the government didn't like the data, it wouldn't be out there.
Yeah. Dr. Bhalla, in conclusion, what's your biggest worry and what's your biggest takeaway from this data?
Okay. There are three takeaways, and the biggest takeaway is that basically poverty in India, extreme poverty, has been eliminated.
Okay.
To me, that is a mega takeaway. I do not, until I look at the data, the unit level data, I cannot say what my worry is. I have tried to run in the last 2 days some consistency checks with the data, and they all take away. Remember, when the 2011-12 data was released, we didn't have, what's the biggest worry with the data. We accepted the data because broadly it fitted what a good data was. Not perfect, nobody ever said it was perfect. Same thing with 2009, same thing with 2004. In India, we've done surveys since 1951. And the only one survey, there was complete worry, and data was released, but it was considered to be junk, was the 1987-88 employment survey. So what happened with the 2017-18 data is unique, and therefore it needs to be studied as to what actually happened in that data. So I have the MOSPI or the NSS or the PLFS have been doing data collection for now, something like 75 years. So, obviously there'll be problems with the data. So I cannot really say that there will be a serious worry with the data, even after it is released. But what I can say is a big takeaway is the resounding growth, the fact that the inequality in India has declined, and this is a rare event in world history, let alone Indian history, and the poverty level or the extreme poverty in India has been eliminated. And therefore, we should move to a considerably higher poverty line.
Okay, let me leave it there. Dr. Bhalla, Dr. Sen, always great to have two fine voices joining us. Thank you very much for joining me here on the news today. Thank you. Joining me now is the one and only Sunil Gavaskar. Appreciate your joining us, sir. Winning without Kohli, Rahul, Shami, finishing this match without a Bumrah. It is quite an achievement, isn't it, by this young Indian team?
Definitely an achievement, but let's not get surprised by this achievement for the simple reason that it's been done before, and that to overseas in Australia. It's been done before. And now, again, now having done it in India, they've shown that you don't need a big name. You need a big game. You need a big heart. If you have that dream to play for India successfully, then India certainly has got loads of talent that it can look at.
But how do you see this young brigade, players who've emerged in this series, especially Jaiswal, who's been fantastic, Sarfraz had a great first test, and in this match, Jurel was the man of the match?
Very exciting. All of them very exciting because they've taken a liking to Test cricket. Jaiswal in particular, look at the number of runs that he scored. Yes, I know he struggled in the two tests in South Africa, but he has a good technique. And then he's got a whole range of shots which he's got by playing in the IPL. Sarfraz is one of those street smart cricketers, nudges ones and twos, then hits the boundary and the sixes. And so is Dhruv Jurel. Dhruv Jurel, the temperament that he has, the game awareness that he has, the way he reads the game, thinks on his feet is that these are all, absolutely exciting things as far as Indian cricket is concerned.
Jurel was man of the match in this game. You've compared him, I believe, with Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Are you seeing the rise of another keeper batsman like Dhoni in him?
I can't remember. I mean, you have KL Rahul, of course, but KL Rahul came into the team mainly as a batter, not as a wicket-keeper. The wicket-keeping aspect came a little bit later. But Dhruv Jurel is a wicket-keeper bat, and with very little experience of first-class cricket. I think he's played 15 first-class games in the previous game. The previous test was his first test match. So 16 red ball games. So his technique looks very good because, he gets, when he's playing the quick bowlers as well, the way he plays close to the body, soft hands. And for somebody who's been brought up on a diet of IPL cricket, T20 cricket, to be able to change that mindset, to be able to change that bat speed, it really tells of somebody who's a good thinker of the game.
Mr. Gavaskar, Jaiswal, scored more than 600 runs in this series. Was he the difference? What do you really think made the difference between the two sides in this series? Sorry. Okay, we've lost that link with Mr. Gavaskar. Mr. Gavaskar, I'll try and come back to that. But what's your view on baseball? The English came to India saying that they would sort of use baseball techniques. Has it really changed the game, baseball?
Well, it's been very exciting, no question about it. This England team is a team that I would go miles to watch because, they play some exciting, batting-wise, they play some exciting cricket. It really is thrilling to see some of the driving against the new ball. Then again, when the spinners come, the use of the feet to hit the ball into the stands. That's been exciting. But clearly on Indian pitches, against the guile of the Indian spinners and against, the seamers, the way Bumrah has bowled, the way Siraj has bowled, they've found that, they've had to resort at times to conventional test match cricket. And as we saw here in Ranchi, they played conventional cricket and, gave India a big fight.
Finally, your player of the series, Mr. Gavaskar, I know there's one test to go. Who and why is he the player of your series?
So far, the player of the series is, without a question, Yashasvi Jaiswal, to score almost 700 runs so far. I mean, it just tells you how he has dominated. His 2 double-unders. I mean, to score 2 double-unders in a career is amazing. This man has got 2 double-unders in a series. So he clearly, and he's taken the initiative away from England, hasn't allowed their new ball bowlers to get the early breakthroughs. And then when the spinners have come, he's been terrific with the use of his feet, the way he's played all around the dial. I think it's been, he without question is so far the player of the series.
So Sunil Gavaskar, for speaking to us as always. Pleasure listening to you. And yes, we've got a new generation of Indian cricketers to look up to. Thanks very much for joining us here on the news today.